Welcome, friends, again to our newest segment, The Extraordinary Zone. Here we are to talk about all of the people that have blazed their trails and set trends in times where they faced resistance in order to do amazing things. So get comfortable and get ready to get uncomfortable in the extraordinary zone. So yes, we have children, real life, hashtag real life. I am also a mom, but also a podcaster as well as a coach and all that good stuff. And I love it, hashtag no filter. So we appreciate you letting us be real with you today. So today I am here with the amazing Jan Buckler. For those of you who don't know her, she is an amazing authoress extraordinaire. I've had the pleasure of reading her books and knowing her through some of that journey. And we are going to just kind of take a peek into her life. Really, the whole mission here is for you to kind of hear an example of someone who is walking their own path, and that it is rough with its resistance and with its changes and with its growth, that you're not alone and that you can do it. I believe we have our purposes and our callings happen for us, and sometimes we kind of hesitate because we don't want any backlash, or we don't want to stand out, or we're afraid of what will happen. And I truly believe hearing from others who are doing the same thing or further down their path it can be very soothing, it can be very comforting, and also just a reminder that we need community and we're not supposed to be doing it alone. So without further ado, we're going to introduce our wonderful guest today. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and just kind of start with asking, gosh, what brought you into writing?
You know, it's funny. I get that question a lot, and I did not like English in school. I always loved reading, but when it came to writing papers, I dreaded it. I think it's because I hadn't found my passion, and that wasn't what was driving me to write the paper. It was for the grade. And I never considered myself a good writer at the time. The idea for the story came for me one morning when I woke up. It wasn't a dream. It was just the idea was there. But what's interesting is I had just reached a crossroads in my life. I was constantly, that was 2008 is when that morning happened. And I had been, my entire life, I got my high school diploma, and then I started a community college, and I must have withdrawn from I don't even know how many classes. I'd take a class. It was the excitement of starting something new, and I loved preparing for it, but I could never execute. I was always I think I had 13 W-2s one year in my life, because I was bored. I could land any job interview I had. I knew the right thing to say, the right thing to wear, to get the job, and I was excited about it, but then after a week, I was bored. It wasn't what I wanted to do. So I decided to go back to school full time. I had always wanted to go to the University of Texas. I transferred. I was all excited, and then I got there, and then it was that, like a deflated balloon.
Fell flat.
And that was the first time in my life, took years, of realizing happiness isn't found outside of ourselves. And it was in that moment where I was sitting in school, and the professor said, "Can you raise your hand if you remember 9/11?"
Right.
I was like, yeah, I drove to school and I was the only person in the class.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, I'm so old here, is how it felt at least. But for some reason that moment shifted something where I said, this isn't who I am. This degree won't define who I am. This isn't what I want to be doing in my life. For so many years I was a people pleaser, and shifting my life of what people thought I should be doing. Probably should be in school, so I'm going to do it. I should have a job, so I'm going to get one. So I got up and I walked out of class, and I said, I'm done. And it was the first time in my life that I came into a posture of acceptance with it, where I realized I'm okay with this, and I'm not going to do it because it's what I should be doing, or because what people are telling me I should do. School's not for me, and it's not for everyone. And I feel like in our society, it's such a program that you have to have that degree. Yes, it's helpful getting a job, but I was raised with two parents that, one got a GED and one, toed around in college for a while but didn't graduate. Two entrepreneurs who did great. So I said, you know what? I'm okay with this. And so it was funny. It was about a week later of moving into that posture of saying, this is who I am. I'm not a college degree. I have no clue what I want to do in my life, but I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went into that gray area and I stopped searching.
Mm-hmm.
And it was literally days later, I woke up with the idea for the story in my head.
Wow.
So it was like a validation that when you clear out the clutter and just allow yourself to open up to the possibilities of what can be there, it manifested. That's like the story manifested.
Yes.
So I still had a lot of self-doubt though in my abilities, and so I just sat on it for 4 years, drove back and forth to work. Listening to music's a huge part of my life. The story, I knew the beginning and the end. I knew I had to fill in the details. So I just sat there driving, listening to music, plotting, and then it was my husband who said, what do you have to lose? You know, so it was 2012. I made that first keystroke, and it was rough. It was slow. I Googled how to write a book. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I got pregnant. Life happened. I went through a challenging part of my personal life, so the writing just stopped. We moved to a new environment. Things started opening up again, and I started writing, but it was still so painful. It was such a slow process, and I was like, what is going on? The story's there, but it's not coming out. So I had a very big spiritual shift in my life, and a spiritual moment. I saw suddenly a void in the marketplace for, especially in the younger generation of readers, that there's so many stories that are exciting and especially fantasy based that readers love. But when you close the book, what do you get out of it? Like I said, I didn't enjoy English, but I loved literature and I always read. And these books were such a great escape. But so many of them, when they were done, sometimes they'd have, some themes of love and compassion, but it was always the villain's the villain, destroy the villain, the book's over, the hero wins.
Right.
And I said, you know what, there's got to be more, there's more to that. I need some depth to this. So I realized that was the void, and I said, you know what, I think I can do this with my stories, create a story of excitement and romance and drama and all the things that make a great fantasy story, but I can also give it really deep messages that can be moving and show the reader life isn't pretty and it's not always sunshine and daisies, but give them tools of how to move through the challenging situations in their life versus avoiding them, and do it with compassion and love versus judgment and hate. And so when I made that, I said, that's what I want to do. And when I set that intention, the next morning is when I woke up and I finished the book in 2 weeks. Then I finished my second book in 12 days, my third book in 3 weeks. So it was once again, it was that validation from the universe or God or whatever you want to call it, that the work started flowing through me. And I said, okay, this is my path. And that was the first time that work didn't feel like work. I sit, 14 hours a day at a computer, and yes, it's hard on your back, but I don't, I think of before I had an accounting job, and the idea of sitting 4 hours a day was grueling.
Right.
And this is just, it's I think once you find that purpose in your calling and your passion, as you know, it's not work. It's just a drive that comes from within. So
that is amazing. And there's a couple of points you brought that just is really neat. And one of them was being bold to step out of your expectations from other people to say, you know what, I'm bored. Yes, I'm in school. Yes, I'm doing everything right, but I'm bored. And a lot of people, I know so many, just hearing when I'm coaching, I hear it, and I love the similarities, because it just shows that we are all connected. We are all brothers and sisters.
Yes.
We really are, which is why we could help each other when we're all different places. But so many people who will say, gosh, I am bored. I am not happy. And then most people will just say, well, maybe I just need to give it more time.
exactly.
Everybody wants me here. I don't feel it, but maybe it'll kick in. We always wait. Well, I'm waiting for it to kick in. I'm waiting for it to kick in. Some people will get to retirement age waiting for it to kick in. Oh, and it's heartbreaking. And I just love hearing stories of people who say, you know what? What do I have to lose? I am not happy. And although me being happy is going to make other people unhappy,
Yep.
I'm going to follow my happiness, because if I'm not happy, who can I serve?
Absolutely.
Who can I serve when I'm not happy?
Yeah.
And that is so amazing. So I hear this being brave and saying, you know what, am I even excited about what I'm doing? And then doing something about it, not waiting 60 years.
No, there's no point. There's no point. I don't know who said this quote, but it said, don't chase your dreams, let them chase you.
Right.
And that really struck a chord with me, because it was like, you know what, if we sit here constantly waiting for something to happen, your life will pass before your eyes.
It's
you know,
so true.
and
What
it's
a
so
good
important
visual.
living in the now.
It
You
is.
know?
It really is, because now is what we have.
That's all you have.
I think that is, I think, the illusion. I feel like we are. I mean, a lot of shadows and substance, and figuring out which is what. Because a lot of times shadows can look like substance, and illusions can seem like that it's real. And a lot of times it goes to, what is in the community, what is in our society, what is in the air that's telling us what we should do. And a lot of it's, you're supposed to go to school.
Yep.
That's what you're just supposed to do. And you're coming out of school, and it kind of makes sense. Well, I'll just go back into more school. But now you've got more choices.
Exactly.
And so I think that's when people decide, like, well, what am I even doing this for? And a lot of times there isn't that transitional period. It's almost like there's a bit of a shunning if you don't go to school. And then, what I love is that those families who would teach their children and say, school's not for everyone. And it's not even for everyone now. Some people will find that maybe later, if they just not even go for a year, just some extra instruction, whether it's finding a community of writers.
Or take a gap year. I mean, other countries, that's just the norm. You finish your, high school and you take a gap year and really figure out what you want to do. I feel like, in the U.S., it's such a shove down your throat. Like, you finish school, you have to hurry and run to college. Why?
It's so true. And most people, their enjoyment in college is not the school part.
Exactly.
So we're wasting money
Yeah,
to
a lot
party.
Of money. A lot
You
of
party
money.
for free.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. A lot of money.
Gosh. And then you said, just having the community of support. That although it was one, I think that's all you really need.
Yes.
If you have a sea of people saying you shouldn't do it, if you're supposed to do it, it only takes one.
Validation it's a tricky thing, and I feel like self-doubt, that's been my biggest inner demon with this industry, is self-doubt. And it's in this industry you have to have very thick skin, because you're going to have people, you're putting yourself out into the world to be judged and criticized by everyone. So I tell aspiring authors, like, that are writing their first book and they're not published, I said, you are in a very sweet space right now, because no one's looking at you, and you've got all the excitement, and as soon as you press that button on launch day that says go live, you're out into the world. So you have to have enough confidence in your own work and in yourself to say, you know what, I wrote a book and I put it out there, and that's more than a lot of the critics have done. It's
That's
easy for
so
people
true.
to sit behind their computer and tear apart someone.
That is very true. And unfortunately, it's part for the course. When you start doing your path, it's so interesting. I mean, and I think the way I look at it is that there is the light, there's the dark, there's a positive, there's a negative in this world. We live in a broken world, and everybody kind of can see that just in what they see out there. And when you do something that is putting more light, more positivity in the world,
It's going to get attacked.
It is going to get attacked because it's messing with the negative balance. And so the negative is going to want to come in and destroy that light, because it's taking away from its negativity. And there is a finite amount, I feel like. It is. It's a finite amount, of positive and negative that's here. And so you think about it as territory, you think about it as war, you can call it what you want, but like if negative has certain territory, let's say the young adult, industry for literature, that there isn't a lot out there that's putting things back into. So you read it and it's a great story, and I love that, and substance, there's the word, that it doesn't really provide substance. As you read the book, and then like, that was a great story, but what am I walking away from it with?
What did I get out of it?
As I invested time and resources, and I think that we are built to have a return. When you invest, you want some sort of return. And a lot of it is, we've gotten used to just good storytelling, and we're not growing, and we are supposed to be constantly growing. And maybe that is kind of the struggle with the people who are negative. I've heard it put so great. There's like 3 layers. You've got the people at the bottom who are kind of unhappy, and the people in the middle, they're not really sure what they want to do yet, and the people at the top that are just climbing, no matter how hard it is, and the people at the bottom want to pull.
Oh, absolutely.
Want to pull everybody, and those get them to pull. And so these, you have to decide, where am I going? Am I going to be down here, or am I going to be up here? And I think
that's what I say. It's that's a lesson I teach in my books is, we always you have the power to see the situation differently.
that is so true.
And I feel like it's easy to fall into the victim mentality and be like, oh, woe is me. They're attacking me. But at the same time, you're giving them that power when you say that. So you can stay in your own power and not listen to the noise. And we can, I think people get confused with forgiveness, thinking forgiveness means you are agreeing with the choice they made. And that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is giving your own power back to you, and you're not chained to those people anymore.
That's right.
And I feel like, so when I you know, the naysayers or the people that bring negativity to my life I would get very defensive and I would want to lash out, even if it wasn't a verbal attack, but mentally I could see I was like putting up a wall. Where now I try to step into, once again, a posture of acceptance and say, you know what, I can forgive them for where they are. That's not me agreeing with what they've said or what they've done, but that's realizing that's where they are in their life, and that's okay.
And that's just saying, I don't know
and
that.
I don't have to hang out with them. I don't have to go to that
That's
level.
right.
I don't even have to respond. Because
That's
I feel
right.
like when you're responding, you know, on social media, it's so easy. If someone makes a comment, you want to put a comment back or feel like you need to defend yourself. And I told my husband from day one, I said, I'll never defend my work because there's nothing to defend.
Right.
The truth's the truth.
It is what it is. That's right.
So I will never get up there if someone's going to start crucifying me. Well, you said this or you said, I have nothing to defend. So if that's the way they see
work
it, that's
speaks for
fine.
itself, yeah.
Exactly, that's fine. But so I think it's just accepting and, you know, showing. I think people also think showing kindness is a weakness. And I think that's a big error.
It is.
You know?
It is. And what an attack, because actually I've seen kindness deflate.
Yes.
The most anger thing. I mean, it's so neat to watch, you know, because it's really difficult. I mean, you know, you're say a person is inflated and ready to just attack, and then if you attack back, well, you're essentially just volleying it. You are volleying it back and forth. But when you take kindness, and I love this, it's a way. It's not necessarily. I mean, I kind of think of it as an absorption, but also it's kind of saying I'm gonna not give it back.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people will, and this is the unfortunate thing, is it's got to go somewhere, which is why I think forgiveness and actually grieving, because it does hurt. And I think our society does not promote grieving. They say toughen up.
Yep.
I mean, I was raised toughen
Put your
up,
big
and
girl pants on.
exactly, and what that ends up turning into anger and defensiveness, you know. And so if we're not allowed, if we're not allowed to grieve, because it does when somebody attacks, it hurts, and that's okay, right? That's them. Whatever hurt and broke, because it hurt people. That's nothing to say there. It's coming from a place of hurt. So I love what you're saying, and I remember reading your book, and I love how your heroine, she's so great, where, you know, she was, you know, working through a lot of that understanding compassion, whereas that I have that instinctual reaction, and then wait a minute, and let me just look at this, and then you see maybe this person's had a bad day, or you don't know what's going on in this person's life, but nobody acts angry for no reason.
Absolutely.
And do I take this in myself and then become angry?
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is when you receive anger, and if you don't receive it in a way that's healthy, it gets out somewhere. So whether you volley it back to the person,
or you're going to harbor it, and then it's going to come out
and take it
over
out,
time.
and you lose control over it at that point. I feel like when you,
and that's what, you know, some of the critique I've gotten from my protagonist is, you know, she's only an 18-year-old girl, and people are like, no 18-year-old has the wisdom of her. Like, she's talking like a 35-year-old. And I think it's funny because that's exactly what I wanted to do. Because people dumb down kids so much. And I feel like that's such a program is like, why can't an 18-year-old woman be strong and show compassion and kindness and actually take a minute and look at situations from a different perspective? Why not?
Right.
So that's
something to aspire to.
Yeah, so it's like I'm giving kids, whoever, anyone, the chance to see situations differently and to actually close the book and think about, how would I handle that situation?
Right.
Or a situation comes up and they're not consciously thinking of my book, but they're like, oh, you know what, I could probably handle that a little.
Let me take a step back.
Yes.
So I think that's what it comes down to, is taking that step back. Because if we react, like that instant reaction is usually not the right one when it comes to what someone else does, and when it's a reaction. But if we take that step back,
acting on anger. Yeah.
It is, because usually that's going to be the first feeling, because what they did was hurtful, and it really and anger is just, I feel like that it has become kind of the diva of the show, you know, where really behind and the real what's going on is hurt.
Yep.
The person is hurt.
They're hurt.
And when you're so used to anger, you forget that really.
And you think lashing out is going to help you feel better,
and
when in reality you're just hurting yourself.
It's just making it worse, and I think that is the trap, just like with children.
Yes.
And that's something that I really just I pray and I see, and I just, you know, and I love that I'm aware, because it's very easy to not be aware, and that just is what happens. It really does. Somebody intends to be that way, but I'm so thankful for the resources and the people that are being bold and stepping out and saying that. And what I love, and I guess I just thought of another way of looking at that critique, is that the good part about that critique coming out is that when you respond to it, wow, you make people think, do I? Maybe the one who's doing it might not receive it, but the ones that are audience, which is always an audience to these things, who's looking at it. And I feel like there's definitely a higher power at work that orchestrates all of that, just so me happening to read that post, like that's not an accident, you know. And so I think that it's amazing that the question gets raised out of a place of being, you know, negative, right? But it allows you to come back and say, well, why not?
Absolutely.
What's wrong with, aspiring to raise our children to be wise before they go out there by themselves?
Exactly. I'm trying to give a positive role model here. So.
And so I think that's also great. And for those of you listening, I mean, when you're doing something and you're getting a critique, that's a great way of looking at it. How can I take this that has been posed and answer it in a way to where maybe this person they're trying to get me out of sorts, but maybe I cannot see that person and say, whoever who's listening, I can address this and possibly bring up a really neat point that somebody might. So love that. That was amazing. And, brings us to the other thing we were talking about was community, right? Just having a support, even if it's one or if it's much. But as you've been going, you have been building a supportive community.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer that mathematics does not work when it comes to support or serving. One can equal like 50.
Quality.
Yes, 50 negatives.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Just one.
Yeah, I tell my readers that a lot. I have such fantastic support in readers that I'm so grateful for every day. And sometimes they feel like they're bothering me when they reach out to me, and I'm like, you are never bothering me with kindness.
That's right.
Yes,
I will receive that all day long.
As an author, when someone says, thank you for writing, or you changed my life, or please continue doing what you're doing, that's what keeps me going. It's not the negative reviews of, oh, watch this, I'm going to make this better. No, that's coming from a different posture. That's right. When you come from a posture of gratitude, it's so much, it's pure and it's natural.
So true. And since I have known you, especially as you've been watching a little bit of I have during the journey, one of the things I've always admired, and I was thinking about the other day, is you've always been so gracious, when it comes to compliments, or when it comes to people showing up, or people getting involved or connecting with you. And that is amazing. That's an amazing quality, because like that person who says, or the people who feel like they're bothering you. I mean, what role models are out there to where that is kind of the thought?
It feels that way, and that I'm always like, what? Like,
expect more from your role models.
Yeah, and I understand. A lot of these huge celebrities, they don't have time to reach out, or they have someone running their social media accounts, and that's one thing. As this grows and it's growing fast, is that's the one thing I always, anytime I get any positivity coming towards me, I always take a moment
send it
and
back.
I give thanks for the gratitude, because I don't want to lose that.
Right, and encourage them, keep supporting people, because I feel like
it's so important.
It is, and it seems like it really is. Feel like it's a struggle. Every time a struggle between putting the good stuff in and essentially canceling out, actually more than canceling out, superseding and taking territory from the bad. And when a person reaches out, that's a bold move that they're making, because they are feeling like, I'm bothering you. So they have stepped past something that a lot of people wouldn't, to come in and support you, and to come and tell them, I support you supporting me.
So I'm always like, no, thank you.
Exactly. Like,
me.
I support you because you had to step out in faith to do this with all these things telling you that you shouldn't. And I want to just encourage you, because keep supporting people, because we need to support each other. That's one thing that we don't do as a community.
And it's funny, I try to constantly break through a lot of glass ceilings that self-published authors have, or the traditional publishers have put over the self-published industry. And speaking of trailblazing, I like to do that, because I want to lift the level of the sea, and I was doing a few things, and I had someone come at me, and they were like, you should tell people your secrets. You should keep this to yourself, so you're the first. And I was like, that's helping me, but not in the long run.
That's right.
Like, that's not like,
that's not serving.
It's not. That's not. And it's like, if I can help other people in the industry succeed, it's not. I think it's normal for jealousies to come up. You'll see another author who maybe just got started, and they're selling more books than you are, and it's a struggle of like,
just
what
learned
am
that
I
term
doing?
recently, FOMO. I just learned that. I was like, FOMO.
What am I doing? What am I not doing? But it's funny. I'm such a strong believer that when we put out into the world, you get back.
That's so true.
That is so true. And I feel like when you help others succeed on their path, and when you share your tricks of the trade, and you just stay in that loving. It's not I am a tough-skinned girl. I'm not one to sit by and let people walk all over me, and people, like I said, they get confused when you think of coming from a loving posture, that you're just, people can walk. No, that's actually coming from a powerful posture.
It is. One of my favorite terms is humility, and the definition, this awesome definition I heard, was strength under control.
Yes.
I love that. Like,
Which is
that is
90% of people don't.
It
They
is.
don't understand.
And just for people listening, like words that are also the same as humility. What author synonyms? What is it? Synonyms. So just because so people hear humility and they think certain things have connotations. But humility, meek, humble. These are the words that compassionate. These are words we're talking about that you're exerting control. This strength under control. It does not mean that you're weak. And I grew up hearing that.
It's a program in our society.
It is. That was something that kept me. We're talking about boxes,
Yep.
right? And just for you listening or watching, we talk about boxes, and we all have them. Is when we're born into this world, we're born with all of our gifts, and we're not sure what to use with them. I call it kind of like primordial ooze. We're not sure what we're going to be yet, and the things that happen, our environment kind of shapes that, and encourages us, or and either way, it says yes, do this, no, do that. There's that positive and negative reinforcement that tells us what lines and where to draw the lines, and so there's the box. So the box gets drawn around you based on what goes on. And I know for me, my box was, don't shine too bright. Oh wait, you're getting a little bit too much, and so I'm like, oh,
Because you need to be humble.
Yes,
and that's the confusion.
It is.
Because people think, oh, you're not being humble because you're shining. That's such a misconception.
It is.
Or like we were talking about earlier about our country with the American dream. You can do anything you want, kids.
Right.
Just kidding. When you get to be an
right.
adult,
Oh wait, we really didn't mean that. When 18 comes, like, no, get back in the box.
So it's such a misconception with that, because it's like you can be confident and not cocky. There's a difference.
It is a difference.
There's a very
and what it comes down to is the place we were talking about.
Yes.
What's the position where I forget you put it, the place of like serving. Are you doing it from a servant's heart?
Yes.
Or are you self-serving? Which
Yes.
one is it? And just back to what you were saying, and this is something that's just kind of been on my heart as well, is the gatekeeping. When you're saying, like, people say, don't tell everybody. That is totally being a gatekeeper. And I'm a firm believer that anything that we have doesn't belong to us anyway.
Yes.
It's totally a gift. Like the idea. Just you've been struck with this idea. I mean, that didn't come from somewhere in you.
That's exactly what I think. It's funny. It's like, yes, I did the work. I sat there and typed on the keyboard.
Right. You walked in
wrote
obedience
the story,
to that. Yes.
But I feel like I always say I'm a steward of the work.
That's right.
And therefore, it's not personal. So
That's
I
right.
can't take it personally if
right.
I get an attack.
That's a really great way of looking at
so
that.
So it kind of takes yourself out of it.
It's not personal.
It's not
like
personal.
It's not about me.
It's not about me.
I'm the messenger.
I'm the messenger.
I'm just
shoot the messenger.
Exactly. I am just the messenger here. And for those people listening, and for me, like when we put ourselves out there through work or through an action or whatever, teacher, whatever it is that you're doing, you are putting yourself out there and opening yourself up to attack from negativity, and just remembering it. You are brave. That person, you and whoever else is, you're brave for stepping out and doing what you have been called to do, because not everybody does their whole lifetime. There's several quotes that say this, but the one is that a lot of people will leave this earth with their music still inside them unplayed. I wrote something when I was preparing for this, and I was going to do kind of a combination of many people leave this earth with their story unwritten.
Yeah.
And how sad is that when you think about that? And because of the fear, because
fear controls
it does.
everyone. I have at least one person at every book signing come up to me saying, I want to write, and they're very timid, and I see their body language, and they're looking down, they won't look at me, they're like, I wanted to write a book, but I could never do this. And I'm like, that's the self-doubt, and you have got to brush that off so fast. Anyone can write a book. Anybody
right.
can.
And anybody does.
Yes.
And the question is what are they putting out there? And I have to be honest, like, I love, I don't even know if I would have come to this idea, but I got this, strike of maybe you should write a book, and I'll tell you the reason why, and it's the same as the reason for you, is there's a lot of content out there. There's so much content out there, but it's not always all good content.
You want a fun fact for this that I just read?
Yes.
The Library of Congress, that's where you register your book to get your copyright. If you read one book, what did they say? It would take you 60,000 years to read every book that's registered in the Library of Congress.
And that's just registered at the Library of Commerce.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
It's a lot of books out there.
There is a lot, and that doesn't even include like what's now on the internet and articles and blogs and podcasts.
Blogs, yes.
I mean, there's a lot of opinions out there, and there's a lot of information. We are information heavy, which is amazing, but can also kind of be a liability as well, just depending on how it's being used. and then the mediums to get to people it's great. You can get stuff to people so quickly, which is great. But like we said, you can use it as an attack. Everything has. I had this inspiration that I got as I've been coaching and all this other stuff was, we're all born with our gifts, and our gifts can either be an asset or a liability. A person that's got a great gift of charisma. I mean, we've seen what that looks like when it's in the bad place, but we've also seen what it looks like when it's great. People who are motivational speakers and people, who, and it really is, it's a gift. They say when you're talking to someone like that, they feel within them the ability to be able to do things. And that's outside of the person. They are just walking in obedience for their gift and trying to make sure that they're serving. And it all comes down to serving. Someone who uses that gift. And we can look at the Holocaust and all kinds of other things and cult leaders. When you're taking that gift and you're self-serving, that's when I believe it starts to turn into liability. And most people don't set out that way, but I think it is that self-serving. And unfortunately, like you were saying, our society has kind of created this this view. So they say, okay, you do what we think you should do, right? And you listen to that. And then they say, oh, well, this person's doing this. And it creates this sense of feeling jealous or feeling like you're fear of missing out, which is jealousy, or that you should be having something or entitled to something that you don't have. So they put you in the box and say, don't come out. And then now you feel forlorn or you feel sad whenever someone's doing that thing now you build this wall around yourself of all the reasons why you can't or couldn't do that. And even you to the point to where you resent people who are doing it. And what an attack, what a gap. Instead of saying, hey, let me know or can I be encouraged by how you face these things, because I think the illusion or the thing people don't know, and this is what this podcast is about, is that people who are walking this path struggle.
Absolutely, every day.
My producer needed me to clap. Love you. But and then it's encouraged. And I love when you were saying that you don't want to gatekeep. You don't want to keep what you have for yourself, because now you can encourage other people to get out of their boxes.
Yes.
To get out of their boxes.
And the more we give, the more you get.
It is, and that's where other place where mathematics doesn't work. Like it really does. It comes back and there's this wave. Like you just you come out there and that lone person doing something that's very hard in servitude. When you do it from a heart. And you wrote this book. This is from serving. You wanted to write because you wanted to serve the young adult community with something, or any community. Yeah. With something, because there are people. They said she sounds like she's 35. Well, there are 35-year-olds that don't do that.
Exactly. Yes.
There are 80-year-olds that don't do that. They just don't know to do it. And so I believe that's taking that responsibility, that social responsibility, that we're all related. We're all brothers and sisters, and some of us might grow up that don't have parents or don't have a support system. And with that open heart, like I was one of those ones that was just searching, like just felt like I really needed more support and understanding of things. And so with that open heart, I would always meet people, who were willing to just share their experiences, and because I was open to it, because when that resentment gets in, you get very closed down.
Yeah, it's amazing when you open yourself up, the opportunities that present themselves.
It does, and I'm a firm believer that God provides. I mean, if you don't have, I didn't have a whole lot of support from my family. Everybody was kind of dealing with their own stuff. Everybody had a lot of hurts and everything. But I always had friends and parents of friends who always stepped in without knowing anything that was going on. And hey, can I give you a ride to school? Whenever when I needed to do something, there was always that person or that was there, and I was looking for it. I was open to it, open to happiness.
And those are like the tiny, miracles are funny. People are like, I don't believe in miracles, or miracles rarely happen. And I laugh because people think miracles like, oh, that's a mother lifting the car off of her child or something, and I'm like, no, miracles happen every day in your life. You just don't acknowledge them. That's right. I found my keys this morning.
I know. I shouldn't have. I know, right? I know exactly. What a great point to make.
I think it's so easy to overlook, but you woke up this morning. That's
you
a
missed the
miracle
forest
in itself.
For the trees, right? Yes.
I'm breathing right now.
That you're here.
Yes, that you're here.
You are here at this place, point in time, right now. I mean, that's a miracle. What all the things that had to line up to get you here.
And it's easy. When we get busy, we get with work, we get focused, and you get that tunnel vision. It's easy to just see the end goal of where you want to go, and you're just like, I'm going to sprint there. But it's so important to take those moments and look at everything around you and look at the whole.
Yes, and take a moment to appreciate.
It's hard. I've struggled with it daily, going, okay, I gotta take some time and.
That is
grateful.
so good.
Grateful,
I have to set a reminder. Like I do have a reminder on my phone. I say my meeting with God. God's like, come meet me, and so I have my little reminder on there. Okay, I'm here for our meeting. But it's such a good reminder, and I think that it's a human condition. You know, we need anchors. You know, we need things to anchor us, because when we get out there, I was just talking about this yesterday. Like, you have an event, for me, for example, if I have an event, and at first, you know, you get so wrapped up into it, and then you start worrying. You start thinking, is anybody even come? Nobody's even signed up. Da da da. And I asked for prayer. I reached out and I was like, okay, can you pray for this event? I'm kind of feeling a little bit worried because nobody's really signed up. And then I'm trying to remember how she said it, but essentially she was like, take a moment, kind of release that, and just kind of re-ask, like what are you doing? Reevaluate. And so I kind of stood and said, why am I doing this? Like, why am I having this event? What's the point of it? And I'm like, well, I want to just serve, and I want to show some love and some light to people. And I'm like, you know, if I do that for just one person, I think at least one person had signed up, then I'm good. I can love that. Gives me more than I can give to that one person who signed up. So there's more going on than I know.
Yeah. The self-doubt and fear, I feel like they go hand in hand. And that's such a, you know, anything that comes up in my field where I'm like, ooh, it's self-doubt's little tapping on my shoulder.
That's exactly what it is. Voice in your ear. Yes, it is.
Or the fear of not being good enough, the fear of failure. The excerpt I brought today is a lesson on fear, because it's such a, I think, like we talked about our society is run on fear-driven thoughts, you know, and it's so easy to get caught in that, oh no, and it's just you just will spiral out of control with it.
I actually wrote a thing, and just these things, it's not mine. I love you say that. It's not mine. I'm just the vessel. I am just the messenger. But something that popped in my head was like, fear is a liar and a prison warden. It really is. It keeps you in that place to where you don't get out, because fear's go. You sure you want to do that? And the door's wide open.
I'm going to read this to you now, because it's right on, and I think you'll appreciate it. So this is from my third book.
Oh, okay. So wait. This is awesome. Okay, so those of you who are listening, when does your book come out?
Passage of Times, the third book in the series, and that releases September.
Okay, so how many months is that? What is it? 7, 8 months. So 8 months ahead. So if you guys listen to this podcast, okay, before September,
it's the first time.
you are getting to hear an excerpt, okay, from the book. So before millions of people are reading it, you get to read it first here on Opting Out, Opt Out. Yes.
I want to bring you a special treat, and no spoilers. So, but it works perfect for what we're talking about here. So, this is a quote. Alara, the fear you're experiencing isn't real. It's an illusion created in your mind and will incapacitate your entire being if you allow it. I sighed, my boots sinking deeper into the snow. The Lunan tightened his grip around my arms before continuing. The walls of fear are built by the unseen hands of doubt. If you accept this truth, they will crumble before your eyes. If you resist it, prepare to stay trapped in a fortress of terror. I blinked hard, absorbing his words. It's time to let go of your fears. Like love, true power comes from within. It's not found outside of yourself. He rested a hand over my heart. It's found in here.
Wow, that is very appropriate. I know, prison. That is so good. Your writing is just coming along amazing. But even the first one, I love the messages in there, and
they build substantially, you know, which is what I wanted to do. A subtle book one, I always say, is a subtle warm up to the marathon.
It is, and it was hard to put it down. It really was. Like, I don't get time to read, you know. And then I was really nursing. I'm nursing baby in one hand, reading a book in the other hand. No, really, I was. And I could not put it down. It's so good.
But it's just messages like that I want to.
Yes, just keep putting it out there, and I'm sure that your book is filled with that. And what I love, and so for those of you listening, watching, is reading, like filling your mind and yourself with content that is actually restoring, teaching, like helping and put positive things. It empowers you, you know, so that you can step out of your box, step out of your comfort zone, and do that thing that's pulling. We all have that thing eventually in our lives that start pulling at us.
Yes.
And I was just talking about this yesterday. I actually, the creative field, I feel like has the hardest time doing it. Authors, musicians, painters. I feel like artists have such a harder time stepping out because society does not give that equality with other vocations. And that's unfortunate, because we need we need beauty, we need inner beauty, and maybe that's why I was thinking about this, why that maybe there is, because I think I look at like territory and things kind of just being under attack, and there's a reason. I always look at, like, what's the reasoning behind it? I'm kind of one of those thinkers. Like, why is it there's such, you think about, like, just even the old adage, right? A child comes and says, I want to be a musician, and, and yes, we have children here, hashtag real life, opting out, opt out. No, really, I'm a firm believer, just side note, I'm a firm believer, and one of my missions, one of my goals, one of my prayers is I would love to be able to do work, do business, and have our children, our family around. I want them around. I don't want to send them, at least, yes, while they're still, especially while they're still little and they're still kind of forming, and eventually they will start getting out there more and everything. But I also you can do it too. How many people, some people, like, we're all wired differently, and I think some, that it works for them, and it works for their whole family unit. And some people, I know people who say, man, I wish I would have, after the children are grown, I wish I would have had them home with me but the fear of everybody saying your kids are going to be weird. And that's another attack that people will say. And so you have to wonder, there must be something, when something is really messed with, there must be something onto it. So back to what you were saying, when it comes to people who are wanting to be artists, you have to wonder, gosh, of all the things, somebody attacks you, I want to be a lawyer. Really, or doctor,
Absolutely.
really, nobody attacks those. They're like, that's great. My family's going to be so happy.
It's like the starving artist.
Yes, and there's
stigma,
and we all grew up just thinking
you're
that.
gonna waste your time chasing a pipe dream.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's a nice hobby, but what else are you going to do?
Oh my gosh, that is the one thing that I, as an author, I think any author can relate to this. That they get a good chuckle about is when someone says, "How's that hobby of yours coming along?" And you're like, I'm sorry, what? Like, that's
you had to put it that way?
That's one comment where my head will spin, because I'm like, hobby?
Really?
My hobby that I spend 14 hours a day on the computer at is going very well, thank you.
Yes, good answer. And it's so interesting, and I feel like, and the people I feel like who say stuff like that don't realize,
they
don't really really realize, like, what, like, obviously that speaks to what's going on in their life, but, like, what they say, it's so funny how I've seen, like, I can be somewhere and be a stranger and have somebody say the exact wrong thing, and they don't even know what's going on, which makes me wonder, there's somebody else watching here. The exact wrong thing. For me, it was I'm at the store with my three little ones at the time, and they're very close in age, so it's like the time 3, 2, and 0, and someone sees me, and they say it still, wow, you got your hands full. And, and me being, especially at the time, still that people pleaser and that agreeable person, which is like, oh yeah, although it struck, like, I don't have that many children.
I got like a leash behind me, like a litter.
I'm telling you, even
if you did.
Exactly, and even still, and I fully want all of them.
Yeah.
And so I remember telling someone who had 9, and, I think she had nine little ones, and she said people would tell her that. And she said that I would say, a handful of blessings. And I'm like, I need to start speaking life.
Yeah.
When someone says something, whether or not they realize how it is being received, if I'm just like, oh, okay, I feel like that's me receiving that. And it did some number on me over time. And I think just, it seems like it didn't get through, right? But it did. And so what I'm trying to be more aware of is speaking positivity over something. And so you responding back, like, actually, it's not a hobby in a nice way, is a way of you not letting that absorb, because once that gets in, that self-doubt is going to start kicking up.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, well,
is
am
it
I sure?
a hobby?
I know. Am I sure that I'm doing this? Man, I'm spending a whole lot of time on my hobby. And really is a hobby. I don't have to get into that, but when you think about that, I just wonder if that's like people make themselves feel better about doing what they're passionate about, and feel like, well, I got to do 2 things, because I got to do what I'm passionate about, and I got to do what they think, pays bills. And don't get me wrong, it's definitely a struggle. And if, this is striking a chord with those of you watching or listening, the podcast video that we just did yesterday was with a musician friend of mine, and he was talking about, like, that first year, he was like, yeah, I was hungry, but I was determined. And for him, and it was just neat seeing through his perspective, because a lot of us don't have that, but I think it's still applicable when you look at it. Like, he's coming out as a Marine in the civilian world, and for him, he was digging out of a hole because he had so many people commit suicide because of not knowing what to do out there. Yeah. And so, being a musician was his anchor, and then, he headed towards that thing like a freight train. He's like, either failure is not an option, and I'm going to do whatever I need to do, and that means I'm starving. If that means I'm downsizing, if that's meaning whatever, then I'm going to do that. Like, we're talking about investing
You have to invest in yourself. And
yes.
You have to be I think
and
a lot
what
of people,
you're going to do. Like he went and bought a $2,000 guitar. He says, I said, no, that's brilliant. Because that's telling yourself that I'm doing this.
Yes.
It's not a hobby.
No, and I think a lot of people.
And he didn't know how to play a guitar. He bought a $2,000 guitar and didn't know how to play it. And he taught himself. I don't know. I was like, that is such a great example.
And that's I think so many people need to hear more stories like that, to realize like you don't have to be special to do that. Everybody has that capacity.
And guess what? You are special, right?
Yeah.
Like
but you don't have to have that like you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Our society,
What the world has kind of put.
Special.
Yes.
We all have that ability to take control and to make that hobby a job or a reality. And yes, it costs money to write books.
Right.
It costs money to, people like, does it cost any money to be a writer? No, if you get your pen and paper and just write.
That's right.
But if you want to be a self-published author, yes, it costs money.
But guess what? So does coffee.
And it costs money in investing in yourself and saying, you know what, no, I'm confident enough that this is going to go from point A to point B.
I'm doing this. And that is really, it's the mentality. And I think when we were talking about being cocky, I think that is where that kind of illusion, that lie comes in, that thinks just because I am driven doesn't mean I'm cocky. Just because I am full force, like a freight train, you're not going to stop me. I'm just gaining momentum. That doesn't mean that I am, I've heard impractical, or that I'm not being realistic. You will hear those. Those are
but if you look at all of the top entrepreneurs in the world, everyone told them they were crazy at one point. Everyone told them it can't be done. I tell people, I hear no all day. When someone tells me, no, that can't be done, I say, watch it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you might as well say, okay, I'm giving you giving me more momentum, right? You tell me now that I'm going to even drive faster.
And it's not coming from that, ooh, I'm angry, so watch me do it. It's a motivation of, no, this is my path, and it's going to be. I'm
driving even further, just so that anybody who feels like it's a no for them realizes it's actually not a no for them.
Yes,
And I love that whole crazy. I feel like, and I'm learning that anytime somebody calls you crazy or says anything around that usually means you're on the right track. It really does. It usually anything that's worth anything is going to be crazy.
When everything starts to fall apart,
I'm telling you,
big's about to
it is.
happen.
And when the question we all should ask ourselves, when we're ready to just go all in into something we know we want to do, we need to realize, okay, what do you want to sacrifice? Because that's really, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing, and when you believe in something, there's nothing wrong with downsizing. There's nothing wrong with, because I truly believe if you're meant to do it, it's going to take hard work, but everything will line up.
Everything falls into place. I've had so many talks with my husband over the year about finances. What are we doing? And it's always gone back to, I believe in this. I believe in you. We're moving forward. It shows up. Everything just always
happens.
Works out when you least expect it. One of a spiritual teacher that I've read a lot of work. He always said when people would ask about worrying about money. He would laugh and say, I have a sandwich for today, and that's all I need. And it's so true. It's like, it's so easy. Simple. We either regret the past or we fear the future. And it's so easy to sit there and be like, oh no, I don't have enough money to get through to pay the bills for this month, or I don't have this. But what do you have right now?
That's right.
Are you hungry right now? Can you go get some food?
That's right.
Let's pull it back to that. not everyone, can, but I'm saying.
But that's a good way to look at it, though. And I know there are times where we've always been somewhat blessed, but I know even in my single life where I'm like, well, I don't know where rent's coming from, or I don't know where food's coming from. And always, for me, my experience, something would show up.
Absolutely.
And I feel like it's an openness. I feel like it's about your heart. And I would love to hear more. And maybe as I talk to people, I'll get a chance to do that, of people where maybe they have, been in situations where they weren't, getting regular meals. But like, what's that story? Because I've seen and I love it when your heart is open and you are just open. I am searching. I am open, and I am joyful. I'm joyful. I just feel like things, for me, my experience, it's always showed up.
Yes, my husband and I both have had times in life where we didn't know how we were going to eat that night or whatever. And, but it always worked out. And I think it is. I think it's, it's when you close yourself off of that, I'm a firm believer of what we hold in mind tends to manifest. And if you shut yourself off as that's never going to happen.
That's right.
I'm never going to get that job. I'm never going to get that interview because of the self-doubt that's building as I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough. No, you're not going to get the job because you're shutting yourself off to it.
That's right.
You know?
And it's going to affect how you behave. It's going to affect what you do in that job. And one of the things I would totally love to encourage, so, and you brought up something that I'm just coming back to my mind now, that I really think needs to be addressed for a lot, especially within the women community, but in general, is that feeling of the fear of missing out, and what that does to people. That they feel like, so for example, someone who also wants to be a writer, and they will look at successes of others and feel that feeling of jealousy or insecurity. And I think that comes from thinking that they are taking something, right?
Yes,
And the society does that, like act now, right? Act out for this offer. And so there's always this urgency that with things. And when I feel like I'm a shut down person when it comes to that, I'm like, if I'm feeling like I'm being rushed, I'm going to stop and make sure it's my decision. But the reality is, like you were saying, there's only one path for each person, and nobody can take that path from you.
Nope. We're all on
Nobody.
It's all on your own path. Don't worry about your neighbor's path.
Exactly, because that's not yours.
They're on their own.
It's not yours. You can't even get on there if you wanted to.
My son's teacher tells the kids, he's 5, tells the 5-year-olds in your class, whose nose is on your face?
Right?
Yours.
That's right.
Don't worry about that nose.
Exactly.
And I'm like, it's so true.
And it's so much easier to do that. Yeah. And I just had this visual is, we were talking about somebody, like a lot of the self-help and a lot of the people that are CEOs that have built a huge business in internet marketing when it comes to saying, do what I did. I've just boxed up what I did, and I'm going to sell this to you, and you do it, and you'll be just as successful as me. And I'm not saying that doesn't work for certain people, but it's not going to be.
It's a little misleading. I feel a little false advertising.
And it is. And remember, we're talking about shadows and substances. That path that they're telling you, it's like, come follow me, that's not your path. And I just had this visual, because I'm like, we're all on our own paths, and you cannot get off of it. Like, it's yours. And you can choose to walk it or not walk it. And I was thinking, when people start taking up like other people's causes and what they're doing that's not theirs, I feel like it's like putting on virtual reality glasses. Like you have the illusion of walking a path, right? Like I'm on this path. But ultimately, you're still standing still, and your path is still untraversed.
Yeah.
Your possibilities are unseen, and whatever you're supposed to put out there.
Like
is not
you can
known.
have mentors. You can have people. Like musicians. There's only one Jimi Hendrix.
That's right.
Don't play your guitar to be Jimi Hendrix. That can be your inspiration.
That's right.
But take that and become your own. I've had a few people reach out. I love what you're doing on your platform and this. I want to do it like you. And I'm very appreciative that they think what I'm doing is helpful or they find it helpful. But I'm like, no, you have to do your own thing. In this industry, you have to put yourself out there. You have to. There's millions of authors. You have to be different than everyone else.
And once upon a time, you were the one that was getting ready to put, and you had you inspired and learned and pulled pieces from and said, how does this look like when I do it?
Yeah, you have to. What do you want to do? Don't conform to the masses.
That's right, because we were all, and I heard this great speech from this awesome lady who was talking about like, look, you want to see a miracle, look in the mirror, and I'm like, that's so true. And when you think about, there's no, other than twins, and even they are not the same. Their genes and everything else are different, and there's always some difference. Mind is different. There are no two people that are alike at all. I mean, how amazing is that? We get to be ourselves. We get to have that uniqueness. We all want you to be unique. We all want to stand out and do us.
That's the irony, right? And then you've got social media. Everyone's living vicariously.
I know, through everybody.
Other people's posts and everything.
I know. I'm all like scrolling and trolling. What's going on?
It's a slippery slope.
It really is. And then people start feeling bad about their lives.
But I think that's the thing, is like, don't condemn that behavior. If you see yourself, everyone does it. We're
Yes,
human.
right,
It's natural
right.
to judge others. It's natural to say, oh, I wish I looked like that, or oh, they're doing better in life than I am. But if the thought comes up of, ooh, I shouldn't feel that way, don't condemn yourself for it.
Right, that's right.
Just
condemnation puts you into that box again.
Just see it for what it is and say, you know what, I'll try not. Just
right, call it out within yourself,
and
say, I don't know what's going on in that person's life.
And that's fine.
Exactly, and say,
social media is only what you want people to see.
It's true. Someone, it was a pastor's wife, was speaking to our MOPS group, and she was saying that it's the highlight reel.
That's a great.
It is. She's like, it's a highlight reel.
You don't even know people. I think of people in the dating world, with all like Bumble and all this stuff, with all the filters. I'm like, I wonder if, when people go on these blind dates, if they're like looking at the filter and then the person walks in and they're like, they look nothing.
#no filter.
Can we FaceTime before we meet?
I know. In real life, does FaceTime have filters on it? No, and it's becoming the norm to do that, to change our appearances, you know, and it's feeding that, because you're right, there is that temptation, there is that draw for, and some more than others, to wish that it was different or want different. And so now there's apps are showing up that are allowing people to play around with those ideas, and it might say, oh, it's for fun, but really we're doing something, I feel like, to ourselves. And or when, like you were saying, when you're scrolling and trolling, when you're scrolling and trolling, and you see something, and it makes you get that ping or that feeling,
Yeah,
right?
you can feel it.
Yes, you feel it. You do. You feel that sting, and then if you don't deal with it, remember talking about arrows piercing, it gets in there and it does damage.
Fester.
It does, and it does a lot of damage. But if you I just felt this way, I don't have to feel that way. I don't know this person's full story, and I can focus on mine, you know, or why do I feel this way? I think it's good in general. I think it's good to always ask why to ourselves. You know, we do live in a society that's always kind of scooting over things. They scoot over. Like, let me just put those bones in this closet.
I'll look at it later.
Don't look over there.
I'll look at it later.
And unfortunately, there's no infinite amount of space.
Yes.
So eventually things bust out.
Exactly.
And then it's horrible. And you have no control. I said you have no control at that point. When you allow it to take over you, then you've essentially relinquished control of dealing with it whenever it first bothers you, I think. That is so cool. I am just so impressed, and I am so thankful that you have given us your time today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yes, and by the way, guys, this woman is a mom and a wife.
Many times.
Mom, wife, blessed life, you know, and it's just to go to show that, and I'm a mom and a wife too, real life. And you know what's awesome? Just a quick note about social media and Facebook. Is that what's amazing is that when you put yourself out there for real, like we could edit all that out and cut stuff out and this, that, and the other, but people feel really relaxed whenever they see like real
I think
life.
because the social media, you lose that authentic, factor of the world. And it's funny, I'll do a lot of stories on Instagram. Can be so awkward when I'm speaking about stuff, and I just give a true life of what the self-publishing industry is like, and I don't sugarcoat anything. I say how it is, and sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I should reel it in, but then I get these messages that say thank you for being you and just putting it out there. I'm like, you know what? Because people crave that. Because we don't get a lot of that anymore.
No, authenticity is the right word. And at the end of the day, we want permission that we can be real too.
Yes.
I have actually a very funny story. So, so our house is a mess. It's a little bit together these days, but like about a year and a half ago, it was clothes everywhere. I mean, clothes are still everywhere, but clothes everywhere. I remember I had this joke that I was like, they're gonna like mutiny and throw us out. And I was doing mops at the time, and I had a friend come over to have coffee. And it's funny because I was having a real hard morning. I was in my closet kind of having that prayer time, and I just finished nursing the baby, and it was a lot of transition, with bleeding and all this other stuff. And I was praying, and I was like, God, I just need a hug. I just really need a hug. And then not long after that, I get a text message from one of the MOPS moms. And I didn't know her super well. I mean, we were all very new, but she just, I guess that crossed her mind. And her son was going to school nearby our house. And she's like, I just dropped off my son. Can I bring you a coffee?
Aww.
I know. And I was like, my first instinct was to be like, well, my house is a mess, and the children are everywhere. Nobody's got any regular clothes on. I don't have any regular clothes on. When was the last time I had a shower? And these are things I'm thinking about. And I remember I just heard this voice that reminded me of something she said at one of our first MOPS meeting, where she was like, I don't have people over to our house because I just don't feel like it's in the right condition to have anybody over. And he reminded me that she said that. And I was like, okay, well, I'll make her feel real good about herself. And then he reminded me, you just asked for a hug. And this person's wanting to bring you coffee out of nowhere. So I was like, yeah, come on over. Sorry if you're going to have to, jump hurdles and sidestep when you walk in the house.
One of the miracles in life.
That's a miracle. So she comes in, and we hang out, and later she's like, I felt so good whenever I saw your house. I was like, I'm glad I could help you.
See, and I think, I know we need to wrap this up, but one more thing. I think it's so important. Like, I try to share, I feel like a lot of people, like the highlight reel, they're just showing the good. And one of my dear friends, it was so great. She showed, it was her son was having a birthday party, and she has 3 kids, but it was 2 boys, and it was time to sing happy birthday, and everyone just melted down. And she's like, go, like yelling at her kid, her husband. And she posted it. She was
awesome.
like, I wanted to give, and everyone loved it so much. And I was like,
People love those
that's
posts.
what people love, is to see that we're real people.
Yes,
you
you
know,
don't have to do the filters or the editing, edit stuff out. Sorry, I'm going to edit you out. You can't edit out in real life.
No, so I think, so that's what I try to show I like to show cool things that happen in my life in the industry, but I also like to say, like, hey, look at this rejection I got today.
Yeah, that is so good,
other
yes.
people, and I love when I see that on social media. People will be like, oh, literary agent said no, and they're being brave enough to put themselves out there to say, hey, look, I got this bad review, I got this, but they don't realize that that's helping. That helps yourself.
So many
put yourself
people.
out there, and it helps so many other people.
It does.
Like,
you don't even have to be a writer to be helped by that. You're like, it's
Yes.
okay for me to
be vulnerable.
Yes.
It's okay to,
And it doesn't work out. It's okay that it doesn't work out.
We
It
have
is
so many
not
no's
the
in
end
life.
of the
So many no's.
exactly.
I tried to tell my son that the other day. I said no. He's like, Mom, I know you say no too much, and I was like, the world is filled with no's,
It
my
is
friend.
so
You have
filled
to.
with
We have.
no's.
You have to be able to brush it off.
And the question is, what do you do after you get a no? Do you stop or do
Yeah.
you keep on going? And will you keep going till you get that yes? Or you check and say, okay, let me make sure. Do I still want to keep going? Is this one? Because some people, I think, chase the wrong path. And then getting doors slammed in their face, So that's something I would love to just real quick get your input on as well. Is one of the things when traversing a path, and let's say there's the one that's designed for you, and there's many of them that are not, and many of people are going towards those because it looks easy. By the way, no shortcuts. There are no shortcuts.
No.
And they will try to do those paths. And as someone who is walking their own, and finding that difference, right? The difference between when the doors are closing or the no's are to strengthen, like, much needed resistance to prepare you, like it's a part of your path. And when the no's are because this is just not what you're supposed to be doing, right? Like how would you, for someone that's listening, right? Like so we asked whoever's listening, are you on the right path? Are you excited? Are you excited about what you're doing where you could do it for 14 hours? That says a lot. In the working world, they can't, legally do that, but are you excited? Can you work 14 hours? Are you excited when you get up to go do whatever it is you're doing? But so for someone who's walking that, and telling someone, what can they watch for to see? Am I on my path or am I kind of doing virtual reality on someone else's?
I feel like this is why I tell writers will say, what do you do with writer's block? And people think it's the story, that you're having a problem with the story, with the characters, with development. No, that's not what writer's block is. In my opinion, writer's block is you have something coming up in your own life, an emotional block. It's not a content block of your story. It's an emotional block in yourself. Something is coming up that is keeping you from getting the work out. So I look at that as when you're on the path, and I feel like it's the self-doubt that'll come up. And I feel like I keep saying, circling back to self-doubt, but I feel like that is so, it's such a strong program that we have to deal with all the time. Yeah. And I feel like that's what will stray people, the temptation. And it comes up with me regularly. I'll have temptations come up in the industry of, well, this is bright and shiny, And I think it's not having knee-jerk reactions, not reacting on emotions when something does trigger or come up in your life. We're in such an immediate gratification world of taking a second just to stop.
That's so true. It's a powerful place in that, taking a moment.
Just taking a moment and listening and seeing what is the noise, what's clogging your antenna here, what's putting you in the box, kind of putting it all on the table and looking at it, and then saying, okay, what it's like doing, your mental inventory. Like what's the self-doubt? What is this coming from? Why am I wanting to go this way? Is this a positive? Right. We don't always get the answer. Right. Right. But I feel, I'm a very spiritual person. If someone prays, I would say pray about it. If you're an atheist, if you're not into that, that's fine. Then just take a moment and really see why am I being pulled on it kind of go on that door, open that door. What is behind that door? We're not always going to know.
Right.
But I think it's so important. I tell people all the time to set your intention and stay true to yourself. And I think when you set that intention on that path, you're going to have all those doors pop up, all that temptation. What's behind door number 1?
That is awesome. Yes.
So I think it's just, I think it's so crucial. Just take a moment. Don't, that buy it now button on Amazon.
I know, that's what happened. Yes, exactly. Like, hurry up. There's a time clock going. Yes. And it's, no, I got to take a moment.
Those infomercials that run for a year, but it's always 30 seconds left.
Like, hurry. And I'm like, wait, I don't even feel myself catching. I'm like, wait a minute. No.
Yeah, I tell people, in the industry, but life alone as well, is it's not a it's a sprint, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon.
It's not a hurry up by now, hurry back now.
It's a marathon. So you've got to just
this will not expire.
No, you've got to take the time.
It's true. And take that moment. That is so true, to see like if they're on that path. On the right path, and look at that. It's such a good point.
And just stay in your power. Just always own and stay in your power, and nothing can.
And you brought up a good point. So one of the things I learned, and just hearing a lot of the voices and the noise, is I realized I've deciphered there's 3 of them. There's 3 of them. They come in different flames. It can seem like it's a bunch, but there's 3 voices. I think I know we all have them, and one of them's our voice. One of it's kind of that positive, that good voice, and then one of them's that negative, the prison warden, the fear box, all of that, and some of them, they all, and the hard part is they all sound like your voice, and you got to figure out which one do I own, which one do I want to receive, and which one does not belong to me, and I'm kicking it out. And that's a daily, constant
Yeah, you're
thing.
Always cleaning house.
You have to check.
I look at vultures, and it's the analogy of the vulture is so spot on. Vultures are always circling.
That's true. That's true. They don't stop.
They're only going to pick at you if you lay down.
That's true too. That is true.
So I try to keep that in mind. Is like, don't lay on your back for the vultures.
Yeah, don't lay down.
You can wander in the desert all day.
Just
and
get up.
They're going to circle you, but
That's right.
It's when you lay down and surrender to these vultures is when they're going to come at you.
I love that. And just to, looping in with the first one, this is our second kind of live podcast with with our guests and in the extraordinary zone. And it's interesting, when I was kind of getting prepared and kind of writing out the ideas of like what this was like and what people are listening and what they're looking for. And I used the analogy yesterday as well, but when you are, if you want to do a half marathon, you don't just show up that day. There's training that has to happen. And I think when we think about it from a physical standpoint, because I'm a firm believer, and I've seen how what happens in the physical, it's so easy for us to understand what we can touch and see and do. But it's a lot harder when it's the things in the kind of the spiritual, the emotional, the things that are not as tangible, although they have a very real space. And I think when we start looking at them like the physical, it helps us understand, well, just the same thing as you want to do a half marathon. There is training. And when you train, it is hard. In order to get to that next level, you have to tear some muscles and you have to break down some stuff. Sometimes you might break something and then you heal and you keep going, and then you get to see the results. And I think that it's hard when you don't have that actual physical track of my marathon day is this day, and I have this amount of time, and here's my training schedule, and this is how I know I'm making progress. When we don't have that ready for us, it's hard for us to keep on and say our intention. Our intention is this. How do I train for this? And I think if we look at it from that perspective, and tell me what you think about this, then it's easy for us to set our goals and set our timelines and always kind of reevaluate. Why am I running? Why do I want to run? Because maybe I shouldn't be.
Exactly.
And everything. Am I doing it because it looks cool, because everybody's doing it, because it's trendy? Because if that's the case, you're going to fall away from it. And you're not going to enjoy it even if you make it. It's going to make you miserable.
Yeah,
because it's hard.
Yeah, you're chasing an illusion.
Exactly. And it's a hard thing to do, especially if you're not supposed to be doing it or don't want to be doing it. So I think it's really neat to look at that training. And so I would love for these podcasts, especially with our guests and people who are telling us here's a peek into my path, and this is what it looks like for me. Don't do my path, but just understand it's hard, and it's supposed to be hard. And you're not alone. If it's hard for you, you aren't alone.
No,
it's hard.
It's a struggle. And anyone who tells you, no, it's not, is fooling.
Yes, you're seeing the highlight reel.
Yeah.
And I think that it helps. And for me, as someone who's kind of stepping out, it helps community. Having that cheerleader, having that person who's going to speak truth, having that person who's going to be like, you know what, I'm further down that path, and this is not abnormal, And
like you said, it only takes one. I'm an introvert. I love being by myself. I'd sit in my room all day by myself. But I can also be very social if I need to be. But yeah, it's having, I have a very, very dear best friend who I call my advisor, and she you know, it's like you said, it's like we talked about, it's, you know, quality over quantity. I can have one conversation with her and she'll pull me out of it.
That's right. It obliterates all the mess that's trying to come in and bombard. You're like, nope. There's light. Y'all go. You know.
But for some people that like to be the social butterflies, they, you know, it's getting it from everybody else, you know, and hearing it from little pieces here and there, which is fine. There's no right or wrong. It's just
and it's there. Whatever we're built, it's there for us. I do feel like everything we need is there for us.
As long as you're open to it.
That's right. And focus on there. I think that is just so amazing. And I hope and pray that everyone listening, watching, is just feeling encouraged.
Yes.
We love to be social. You can find my sweet friend on Instagram under
author_J.M. Buckler.
And on Facebook under the
A Seeker of Time. If you put Seeker of Time.
Awesome. You can find her. She also has a website. You can follow her, as well as some really neat instructional videos, right?
Yes, those are on Instagram. I do. I have a series. Kind of goes behind the scenes of the publishing industry. Gives you some tips and tricks of the trade.
So those of you who are interested in starting that journey, connect with her. She is a wonderful person who will totally point you in the right direction for your path.
Absolutely.
We here at House of Zeddy /opt-out would love to hear from you too. If there's anything that we can do to serve, please let us know. We just want to make sure that you feel loved, you feel relaxed, you feel filled with light when you visit with us. We are so glad that you joined us, whether not long after we published it or years later. We are so glad that you're here, and we know that there's a reason that you have invested very valuable time with us, and we are thankful for you. And again, let us know if there's anything we could do. We love you. Please join us again on our Extraordinary Zone, where we opt out of the norm and we do and traverse the crazy and the extraordinary, because every one of us are extraordinary. You're extraordinary. My husband's extraordinary. Thank you. You're extraordinary. Love you, and have a wonderful rest of your day.